Nova Legends podcast. I have my esteemed panel of soccer officials, guys that keep the game running. Don't worry, we have lots of great women officials around. Gabby joined us last time, but we're going to talk about all the issues, many of the issues that affect both scholastic and also club soccer. Guys, nice to see you guys again. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Julian.
Of course. Well, first of all, guys, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourself and in Ben's case, reintroduce yourself for the few people on the planet that didn't see the first podcast. But just, give a few minutes about how you got interested in sports and also soccer in particular, and how you got interested in refereeing. Why don't we go with my pal Ash Sakar? And I pronounce your last name right?
Perfectly, Julian. Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't we start with Ash, who did a lot of my son's games and always did a great job.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to see your son grow up on the field and to follow you along, and your passion for the game comes out in these podcasts. So we really appreciate it as officials. My name is Ash Sakar. I've been officiating. This is actually going to be combined with USSF, NCAA, and high school. This will be my 25th year of officiating.
Wow.
On and off, both here in the United States and then when I was posted overseas. I used to be a player in high school. I played club in college, and this has just been an extension, an opportunity for me to continue to be a part of the game. So I belong now to the organization that's run by one of our esteemed guests, Dick Cote, the Commonwealth Soccer Officials Association, which to me is the premier organization for referees in high school in the region. So glad to be a part of it today.
Oh, great. Well, Dick, that's a pretty good segue into your introduction there. Hopefully you can meet all those expectations right there.
I hope so too, Julian. Thanks. I've got about a 38 year career in refereeing soccer. And I was one of those years ago that played high school football because soccer wasn't a favorite sport. And so you had to play football if you're going to be anybody. And I lament the fact that I never started until I got well into college to even play the game. So 38 years refereeing, assessing. I've been a state referee and I've been a state assessor. And on bona fides, I'm currently one of about a dozen state referee coaches or USS soccer referee coaches, sort of a new melded position that they've created within the state. I joined CSOA 32 years ago. Yeah, 32 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to be elected the president of this organization 22 years ago. So I've been serving as the president of CSOA for 22 years. And Julian, just for scope, CSOA does all the interscholastic soccer from Stafford County to the DC line, all the way out through Fauquier, Loudoun, Prince William, Stafford, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's interscholastic soccer in Northern Virginia, that area, we're the ones that are providing referees for it.
Oh, great. Well, we just moved from Arlington to Loudoun, so maybe hopefully you can keep my son busy one of these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we need him.
Yeah. That'd be great. Well, thanks, Dick. Let's go next to Dave Shand. Meeting you for the first time, Dave. Why don't you just, like Dick did, just give us your background, how you got into soccer and how you got into officiating.
All right, sure. Nice to meet you, Julian. Again, I'm Dave Shand. I've been officiating soccer now this is my 11th season, so I guess I'm the baby of the group. As I know, Ben's been doing this a lot longer than I think all of us. I started soccer when I was in high school. My freshman year of high school, my school didn't even have a soccer team. It wasn't a thing. But then after that, we got a team. I started playing then. Got involved in the sport. Had never really played organized soccer before that, but got involved in it. After high school, I joined the military. I just, did 25 years in the Navy. And while I was in the Navy, I played on Captain's Cup kind of intramural type teams, a lot more kind of fun getting together with guys and playing from different commands. So stayed around soccer the whole time. Injured my leg playing soccer. So kind of playing wasn't really a thing for me anymore. Those quick cuts that are required on the field. So in order to stay around the game, I turned to officiating. became a referee, 11 years ago. Just a great way to stay connected to the game. And, like they say, it is the beautiful game, and I just wanted to find a way to stay a part of it, and I'm enjoying it. I'm actually working now on becoming a referee mentor. I'm going down to Charlottesville this weekend for that class, so trying to move up, trying to help to develop younger talent as they come into the refereeing ranks. But yeah, I love it. Been with CSOA for about 8 years now. And again, it's a great organization. Love to work with them. They're great for the sport. They do great things for soccer, and they really work well with us as referees. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, that's a lot in 11 years, Dave. That's great work there. So next we'll go to our returning champion, Ben Glass, who a local player and played at William & Mary, had an pretty incredible soccer background. Ben, why don't you go ahead and give us some of those highlights and reintroduce yourself to us.
Thanks, Julian. So I was born lucky in that I was born here in Northern Virginia, introduced to soccer at a young age, and in the 70s, Annandale was one of those several hotbeds of soccer across the country. So I was fortunate to play with a lot of good players. Our youth team was national champions when we were 18. Every single one of my teammates went to play Division I soccer someplace. I went to William & Mary, and I started refereeing at 16. So I'm actually starting my 50th year of refereeing, with a couple of years off as I was raising kids and starting businesses. But Dave Dugan, who coached our youth team, said, sent a bunch of us to the course, said, look, this will make you a better player. And I just really liked it. And I don't know how I survived those years, because oftentimes, Julian, when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, I was down in DC. I was refereeing every top level senior amateur. I was the only, oftentimes, of course, I was the youngest. I was, American kid, really. And some of those years, it was really, really challenging. And so stayed involved with it. I started with CSOA probably about 8 years ago as my kids were aging out of high school. It is a great organization, because I think what people would come to understand if you saw what we're doing is we do a ton of training of referees and monitoring and assessing of referees. So we don't just send people out there and hope that they do a good job. There's a lot of internal pressure that referees put on other referees to get things right. I'm still in the game because I think every game is a psychological and a physical challenge. It's just a really fun place to be. I do, U.S. soccer at the youth level still, but there's nothing like the high school game. You got stadium, national anthem, fans in the stadium. It's just a different experience. And so it's still fun for me. I'll keep doing it as long as it's fun.
Yeah, well, look, I can't wait to talk a little bit about the difference between high school and club soccer. I'm always on my soapbox trying to get top level clubs to also play for their high school, because I think it means so much when you're able to do so. Well, let's start off with last time we had this discussion, and I'm interested to see what the rest of the panel thinks about this. We were having a hard time with attracting enough officials, but retaining them. Ben had put a viral video up at West Springfield High School of a parent who wouldn't let a bad call go. That's never been me. But you guys were really working through this challenge, and it's not just soccer; it's every sport. Basketball is having a horrible time, so much so they used to have a Tuesday, Friday schedule for varsity games. Now they play every single day of the week, so they can have enough officials cover all the game. So I just wanted to check in to see how things are going. I know COVID had an impact. A lot of folks never came back after COVID. I would have thought with remote work, one of the problems I had when I was official was trying to sneak away to get to that Winchester game, John Hanley High School. But nowadays we can all, get away. Well, it's easier to get away. So anyway, just check in. How are things going? Are we doing a better job, or have we come up with any solutions?
I think Dick will have a good handle on current stats. I know that National Federation of High Schools reports a loss of 50,000 sports officials across all sports through the COVID years. So those are guys and gals who didn't return. And of course, nationally and then statewide, there's a push by the National Federation of High Schools and Virginia High School League to recruit officials across all sports. And Dick can, I think, talk to you about what's the picture at the high school CSOA level, because we cover a ton of games.
Yeah, Julian, this year, right now, we're looking at 287 referees that are that are active within the organization. When I say active, that are in our system. 250 of those are actually signed in and ready to be assigned, which is a little bit up from where we've been. However, 52 of those people are brand new to the association. They joined after July of last year and during the spring of this year. So there's a number there that we don't know a lot about their ability and how they're going to fit in and where we're going to best use them in the system. But right now, our numbers are about where they were last year, and we can always use more help. The problem is we're running short on a window to be able to get them in because the season starts in about 2.5 weeks. And if they're not in the system by then, getting them in after that is difficult. So I've got right now, our assigner has to work with about 250 people to cover the games that we've got. And just a quick number on those. The last spring we did, let me quickly scroll down and look at it. I'll give you the number. Last spring we did 2,785 games. And that was over a 10-week period from late February through June. We did 873 games in the fall. And of those games, 98% plus were covered by the requisite number of people, i.e. the 2 referees or 3 referees by contract that we have to provide to these schools. So I don't want to tout the fact that I do want to tout the fact that we're able to make things work, but it's because of the organization and the assigner that is really working with the referees and their dedication to it. Another 50 or 60 referees would make our job and all the referees' job much, much easier. So we do have a recruiting problem that we haven't resolved yet, if that helps.
Yeah, well, I would say that those numbers are very helpful and they seem a little bit promising. I will say, watching basketball this year, I think the message that people like Ben have been trying to get across about abuse of officials, I didn't see anything in basketball this year. The crowd, I think people are beginning to realize we need officials or we're not going to be able to have any games. I didn't see any game when parents got kicked out. So, you see that, the Instagram posts were, from Nevada or something like that. But the games I went to in Northern Virginia, I have noticed the parents seem to be better behaved these days. So hopefully that message is getting across. Does anyone else want to jump in about retention, attracting new candidates, or parents and spectator incidents affecting the ability to attract and retain? Mm-hmm.
I'll talk a little bit about some of that.
Yeah.
I think Dick did a good job covering from the high school side. I think from the USSF travel and rec side, I think the parents overall are, I would say, getting a little better. I like some of the initiatives UF Soccer is putting out to re-emphasize the referees that the spectators are not your responsibility. Let the coach deal with them. So I like the way they're pushing it. I think that's going to help younger referees better handle those situations by having another adult that they can go to. I would say overall that the retention, especially on the USSF side, is still really low. Like when you see the assigners send out their emails, and I've counted before, the day of games, there'll be 80, 90, 100 slots open on that day where they're still looking for referees to fill these travel and rent games. And is it better on the high school side? I would say it's trending upward, but the travel side with all these Saturday games where you need the young new talent coming in, it's still woefully lacking.
Is there a competition sometimes between travel and high school? Like you guys are both trying to get the same person to referee, and do referees choose one over the other?
And from my experience, I've talked to several that don't want to do both because the rules are different. They're close enough to be confusing on the points that are, those few things that are different. So yeah, I do know several that don't want to. And then you get the more senior guys who want to do college as well. Well, now they got 3 sets of rules and laws to learn. So that definitely, I think, dissuades some people from making the move from the U.S. soccer side to the high school side.
On the other, I'm sorry, Ben, on the other side of the coin, Julian, though, high school enjoys the benefit of only working Monday through Friday. You know, and therefore, there's more flexibility. We're not competing with the travel in the club soccer, which are largely on the weekends. Our only competition are senior amateur events, adult leagues that play late in the evenings, 7, 8 o'clock games. Sometimes there's conflict, et cetera. So the bigger problem is being able to get out during work days, to get out to go do a JV game at 5:30 and then turn around and be available, or you're there, but you know, you've got a 7 o'clock varsity game. So that complicates it, but there's less conflict between the two sides of the soccer world.
Well, how about you, Ash? I know you're in the trenches. I saw you a lot last year. Have you noticed any changes in with the parents that you've been dealing with? I know the fact that my son no longer plays, things are looking up for you.
The Yorktown crowds are very involved, right?
Yeah, they are.
Spectators and a certain level of officiating.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this level, I feel like a lot of it is driven by the kind of atmosphere the coach and the administrators want on the sideline. And I've seen in the last, I want to say my last season, the previous season, it's been progressively better than the year before. And I'm not sure what to credit that to, but I like to think that coaches are understanding the nature of how difficult it is to recruit new officials. And one of the impediments to recruiting officials, you know, when Ben or Dave or myself step into the coin toss, we're asked to say some things, some very typical things to the players. But I know Ben is one of the biggest recruiters out there in terms of putting out things on social media. But when we step into that coin toss, we're looking at players who essentially could be in their last season competitive soccer. Some go on to play D3, D1 opportunity to say, hey, guys like Dave, guys like Ben, guys like myself, we love the game. We want to stay with the game. That's why we became officials. And we think you could be in that position too. So to be able to sell that, we got to get a crowd that is willing to accept the decisions that are made on the field and move on. And just to round out the question, I think overall it has been a little bit better. And education and attitude and administration are huge parts of that.
That reminds me, that's great, Ash. That reminds me of a story my daughter, well, reminds me of something my daughter said. We were over at a game at Riverside last fall, and it was just a club game. And all of a sudden the referee walked over to the sidelines, and I didn't know what was going on. And he just basically asked all the fans whether they'd be interested in officiating. There's a shortage. You guys can make some money. Just broke out. And it was a great talk. And my daughter said, and one of the funniest things I ever heard her say, she goes, "Dad, I think he just had a leading man moment." My daughter's into acting, and it was just weird. He just came over here and started talking to us. And so they're definitely, I think there's awareness with officials that they got to spread the gospel, and they got to tell people about it. And, you know, Ben always does a great job of doing that. So,
You know, I think it was worse when I was sitting in the stands when my son was playing, and now you're sitting next to people who are just crazy, right? In high school.
Mhm.
On the field, personally, I don't hear, like, you can hear a noise, you can hear cheering, you can't hear specifics. I agree with Ash, like, so much of this is led by the administration and by the coach. I put up a video today talking about serious coaches and non-serious coaches. So the coach is running around the sideline, going outside his coaching box and throwing his arms up every 45 seconds, that will incite the crowd, right? Because throwing his arms up is not signaling for a touchdown, right, or a field goal. It's signaling like the referee has done something wrong and now we'll let the crowd in. So, and there's some really great administrators, you know, and I think most of the coaches are really great. There's a handful, you know, a relatively small handful that make it hard for everybody else. Every administrator that I've met, like, they're great. They're out there. They work so hard. They're at school all day, and now they're at the stadium at night, it's raining, we're at least running around, we're kind of warm, and they're out there and they're making sure that we're getting taken care of by and large. Most of the coaches are pretty good. The athlete is fantastic. I find the high school athlete, boy or girl, to be very respectful, hardworking. But it is, the weekend games, like the fans are right there. And if the referee doesn't like take care of the tenor of the field, then they all just start chirping in, and that's where disasters start.
Well, speaking of administrations, they can make some choices. Now, Yorktown last year, they put both benches on the same side of the field, and they put both supporting sections on the same side because they didn't want to clean up the other bleacher, basically. But you have choices now. In high school, you can put them on separate. You can put the benches on separate sides if you want to. Some don't, like Washington Liberty, like to put the Yorktown bench in the sun. So we're tired in the fourth quarter. I hope Coach Jimmy is listening to this. But are those kind of things that you do? Those kind of things as a way to control behavior, or is there other things going on when they make those decisions?
Dick can speak to this exactly. Yeah.
Julian, this is the bane of our existence to a certain extent. The game was designed for benches on the same side of the field, specific placement for control purposes. And what happened a number of years ago, the principals in Northern Virginia, or principals in Virginia, decided as part of the executive committee on VHSL that they wanted to put benches on the opposite side of the field to control the people. That was their philosophy. Football has them on both sides, the American football, but so soccer needs to have them on both sides. So we don't mix fans together. Well, the truth of the matter is it's harder to control that way. If you're a home administrator at a field like Yorktown, at Sanford, and you've got your opponent on the opposite side of the field, there's not necessarily the same administrative oversight to that group of people as there are to the Yorktown people. The Yorktown people are familiar with their administrator, the visiting team is not, et cetera. So there is an opportunity for the fans to escalate their I won't call it, but escalate their dissatisfaction with what's going on the field without being able to control it the same way we would if we had an administrator available over there. And if we have both benches on the side, then bench control, technical area, is easier to accomplish for the referee and the AR that's working that area. So it's a give and take. We prefer them on the same side. They want to do it the other way. We don't change it. We leave it the way they want it. But it's harder to control.
Once you get to the state tournament, they have to be on the same side.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else want to jump in here? Well, one thing that I noticed at the high school game, especially, you have great characters like Coach Bo from Langley that keep up this great natured dialogue with the other coach, the referees, someone in the stands, anyone who will listen. And he's wonderful. And I remember I met Ash as a parent on the sideline. He was doing, was it club or high school at that time? But the referees nowadays, we have dialogue with kids, with fans that are respectful, with coaches that are respectful. When we were young, referees tried to keep their distance, almost like they were not human. They stayed away from us. The other day I was watching the Ajax game, and there was a very controversial call where VAR was going to determine whether a ball was across the line. There was very little time left, and the referee was out there just yapping up with some of the players because it was out of his hands. VAR was going to decide it, so it was okay for him to smile in the 94th minute and talk about it with these players. So anyway, what is you guys' idea about the relationship with officials, linesmen, people, and fans, coaches, and players?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that. So to me, you've got to let everybody see us as officials as a human. We're people, we're going to make mistakes, but we're out there for the good of the game, for the love of the game, to do the best we can. So the more we can interact with everybody else, coaches, administrators, athletic trainers, whoever, as people and they see us as people, I think it helps keep the game at the level it needs to be. Obviously, if there's a really bad call that they really disagree with, emotions still run high. But by having that pre-game conversation and talk to each other, hopefully you can then come over, especially during a high school game, you just stop the clock as you need to, go talk to the coach. You can bring it back to that human level and de-escalate the conflict. I think your point was great about the coaches. There's one particular coach that when I see him on the sideline, this is for USSF on the weekend. He's a Valor coach out here in the Chantilly area. I know I am not going to have any issues with him because even if I screw up, he respects me as a referee and knows I'm doing the best I can. I actually cost his team a goal one game. Girl gets stripped top of the penalty area. Beautiful spot for a free kick. I look at the ball, see, do I play advantage? The ball is clearly going over the goal. So I blow my whistle. The ball dropped just under the crossbar and into the back of the net. Had I let it go for about 2 more seconds, the goal would have counted. The coach's response, well, that's unfortunate. And he moved on because he knows I didn't do it on purpose. He saw me as a human. So it's very important for us to have that dynamic. Obviously, with the spectators, we got to be careful what we say. They're there. We don't control their behavior, but again, we want them to see us as humans.
Plus that Valor coach had bet the under on that, so that's probably why he wasn't close. How about? Does anyone else want to talk about relationships with parents or fans?
Yeah, you mentioned Bo, and he's a great example. And Bo has his outbursts. He's not happy all the time about what's going on, but he's a coach that can control and from experience knows what he's doing. He'll explode. He'll make a comment, and then he's done. He's had his say, and he's able to walk away from it. That isn't always the case, and I'll let some of the others, if they want, talk about that. Where and obviously we've got reports, I've got write-ups, et cetera, where it gets downright nasty, where the referee's integrity is called in question, snide comments being made. And that is what Ben was talking about earlier. It escalates to the crowd. The players get agitated. They think they can start dissenting, and the spectators are just echoing the same behavior, et cetera. And that is a problem from a high school perspective. It's not all the coaches, but there are coaches out there. One other point, and I'll get off this hobby horse I'm on, and that is there's a basic disagreement over or understanding of the National Federation rules. A lot of these coaches that are working in high school work a lot of U.S. soccer, et cetera. So they're playing under that rule set. They're not educators necessarily. They're hired by the school to come into the school and coach their soccer team. They may or may not be as up to speed as they need to be with the rules. And so and we've run into it, there are differences or difference of opinion on whether or not the rule was called correctly. And that leads to confrontation that shouldn't happen at all, but it does.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dick. Anyone else want to jump in here on this one?
Honestly, Julian, I think one of the things that we try to infuse when we officiate is the idea that we have personalities. Dave kind of talked about it in the sense of, there's a professionalism associated with being a human. We're all human. But at the end of the day, the most successful referees, the ones that I try to emulate in our organization, are the ones who they really infuse their personalities. They do it in their interactions with the players, with the coaches, with the administrators. And I think that helps to develop that side of, hey, this person is a human. They're very invested in the game. There are a lot of things that we show without saying anything that shows how invested we are in what we do as officials. When we show up early, when we clearly demonstrate that we have a level of fitness to keep up with these 17, 18, and 19-year-old boys and girls, when we speak in a certain way that demonstrates a level of respect, whether you are 17 or 18 or 55, whatever the case may be, these are the tenets of, I think, the organization that Dick sits at the head of, and something that I've seen throughout all of the officials that I work with. And it's something that helps to manage the game, which is essentially what our job is.
Well, Ash has a very high likability factor. And I remember one time we were playing in a game over at Wakefield, and Ash was the linesman on the other side of the field. I didn't know it was him. So at one point I yelled offsides, and I looked up and I saw that it was Ash, and I just like, I can't believe he's the nicest guy in the world. And I just yelled at him. And it's just so funny because, you know, ordinarily it wasn't a big deal, but you know, Wakefield and Yorktown is the end of the world. But you know, once I saw it was Ash, I felt so bad for yelling at him, you know. So I do think you guys have the right solution. It's good to be human. The old way when I started officiating was not the right way. We couldn't show any emotion, couldn't show any likability, because that would show that we may be impartial. So those days are gone. How about this, guys? Do the coaches? We had a situation last year where, without revealing the game, a goal was given that shouldn't have been given, and a huge rivalry. Coach ended up getting tossed, and he did it in a very measured way because there had been a penalty given earlier, like a minute earlier. So he went from being 1-0 up over a team that was highly rated to being down 2-1, and he really wasn't upset, but he just figured that he had to get tossed just to prove his point. I don't know this from talking to him, but I could just tell, I've watched him. So anyway, he gets tossed, and the game was just unraveled from there. It was ugly. Do coaches have the ability to scratch officials? When I used to referee, everyone had a scratch list, and you got like 5 scratches. And on the club side, do officials have pressure when they're officiating a huge club and maybe a big matchup, maybe like Arlington, against a smaller club like my son played for Villarreal? It doesn't have as much juice. How much accountability do the officials have to the coaches?
Let me just speak for a second on the club side, and then
Okay.
Dick can really talk about. So from the club side, I think clubs, I think most referees, so most of us out there, we don't care. We don't even know. Like, okay, so you just mentioned 2 clubs and suggested that one is like has more juice than the other. I'm just responding to an email from an assigner looking for a game that looks interesting to me to go and do, right? And so you go to these, sometimes you go to these tournaments, like everyone else thinks is a really important deal. I'm just looking for a game. So that doesn't affect me. Maybe I should pay more attention to that. I don't know whether Dick can tell us whether coaches can scratch referees or not. I have a list of referees that I've scratched. I won't.
No, I know that, and I believe it. To answer the question, Julian, from Federation CSOA's perspective, yes, we have a contractual way that a school may, in fact, not see another referee. If there is a personality conflict, something along those lines, they can ask not to see the referee on a subsequent match or during that season. And contractually, we will honor that and not reschedule the referee on a home or away game with that team. It's a 1-season deal, and in fact, we don't tell the referees. I've got referees sitting in front of me, and I will tell you, we don't tell the referees that they are not. We just don't assign them to the game. We take them off of that assignment and go from there. It doesn't happen very often, but contractually we do allow that.
Yeah.
There's so many games, Julian, like I rarely see the same team twice in a season at all, unless you're doing a playoff game and you've seen them again. There's just an unbelievable number of games going on. Dick can tell you, like some nights, I forget, we're covering 90 games or something.
Yes.
So I wouldn't know how many schools have banned me.
David or Ash, you want to jump in on this one?
I mean, I really don't have a whole lot to offer. I mean, from a referee perspective, I would like to know if I've been banned from a school, just so I can like, all right, what do I need to get better at that I'm obviously doing wrong? Or is it a personality conflict that has nothing to do with me? But I would like to know, but yeah, it's, I understand why they don't tell the officials that. But yeah, I don't see it as an issue. Like Ben said, I'm just responding to an email. Where's the games? Which ones look like, sound like they could be interesting and exciting to do and fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
Who they are and what they're there. I just want to give them the best referee performance I can give them on the field.
Yeah.
And David, I don't want to let you, or I don't want you to believe that we don't, when something comes up in one of these situations, if the referee is the problem, there is a discussion. We do have a way we go out and look at them. We do those kinds of things to help them, so that we don't just ignore the problem and say, yeah, we'll just move them over here and forget about it. The object is to help across the board. Sometimes it's just from the other side and they have the right, and so we just observe it.
Yeah, I think what Dick just said there is a very important thing, and it goes for high school and the youth side, is they want to help and make everybody better. And I think that's an inherent part of the referee community. We're constantly giving each other feedback because we all want to be the best team on the field. And none of us know enough to do it right all by ourselves every single time. So I think what Dick said is very important. They want to help us become better, just like we want to get better.
I think Dave hit the nail on the head with respect to probably the hardest voice to listen to at the end of the game when you've made a mistake in law or in decision-making process in a key match incident and potentially influence a game is your own voice. That drive home after the game, thinking about how could I have handled that differently? How will I handle it in the next match? Those are some of the I guess, most provocative thoughts when you're thinking about a match. And I don't think the average person necessarily understands how self-critical we are of our performances. There's a lot of discussion afterward and a lot of review. Some of us will pull up the NFHS video afterward to look at our performance to see where it was that we potentially made a mistake and how we can improve from that in our next performance. Because at the end of the day, this organization is made up of a lot of perfectionists. We all are very critical, very alpha, and want to be the best at what we do.
Yeah. Well, let's move. Thanks, Ash. Let's move on to rule changes. Now, I looked at the high school rule changes before we jumped on. I don't know if club is between seasons or this is the beginning of the new season. I don't know how it handles. But what are some of the rule changes for this year? I knew in high school they want kids to not go just to the first sideline they find. They want to try to go to the right sideline, I think, and handball should be given whether or not it's intentional or not, I think. But anyway, I'll let you guys talk about the rules since you guys know a lot more about them than me.
Since you mentioned the handball, let me throw in here. The bottom line is they finally came out and basically said it has to do with scoring goals. Whether the handling of the ball or the handball was accidental or intentional, you can't score a goal off a handball. So if you as a referee or the AR have got a handball situation, the ball's in the back of the net, it's not going to be a goal. It's either going to be a corner kick or it won't be a corner kick. It'll be a goal kick and it'll be coming out. So that's that part of the law. The other rule that came out had to do with timekeeping, and that is we used to, if a player went down injured, we'd stop the clock. And what would have to happen is the referee could go over and look at the injured player and make a determination that he could continue to play, that he was all right to continue to play. But having stopped the clock, that player had to leave the field under high school rules. Okay. What they've done is they now allow the clock to be stopped for the referee to have a quick option to say, are you okay? You can take a break, or do I need to bring the coaches on to help you? And erring on the side of safety, we've told the referees that if the player's injured, we want the coaches and the trainer on, obviously. And that's the situation where the player has to leave the field and can be substituted, et cetera. So, but it's a subtle difference in timekeeping that didn't happen before, because referees were reluctant to blow the whistle to stop the clock to look at somebody because basically the player had to leave the field. And now we can do that, and they don't lose time, and then the player can, simply shake it off a little bit and get back up and play. So that's sort of a big deal change that we haven't really had a chance to work with you.
It sounds like Ben and Ash should have gone to medical school instead of law school. Yeah.
Well, so, but a bigger significant difference between high school and everything else is timing, because in high school, when the clock is over, the clock is over. And it's just like basketball. So think about that. So, you know, even if you've shot the ball, if the time is out, the time is out, the game is over, which is a big difference. And that upsets a lot of, and we're in the middle of the field and there's a break going on. And, you know, we're the one keeping the time on our own watches. If we're honest with ourselves, and time's out, time's out. That's a hard thing to do psychologically, because it's contrary to every other fiber in your soccer body. But that's a high school rule. We have to play by the high school rules. By the way, if for referees, like for me anyway, if you ever get in trouble and you're not really sure, you just shrug your shoulders and you, well, that's a high school rule, coach, because they don't know. They don't know any of the rules. I mean, I won't say they don't know any of the rules, but they don't know these subtle differences either.
Yeah. Maybe one day they should just go with one set of rules for both, huh? So,
Oh, we can
Yeah.
all team.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Ben. That's actually part of my pregame now when I have the coaches and captains out in the middle. This is high school. When the clock hits 0, the game is done. There is no continuation of the play like on the weekend. Is undoubtedly there's an attack going on. There's a corner kick about to be taken, and the clock hits 0, and you blow that whistle. Somebody is screaming at you because they don't understand it's the high school rule. So that's part of my pregame now.
But
Yeah.
let me,
Yeah, sure.
we created the problem for ourselves, because unlike basketball and football, where the clock is run on the stadium and it, you know, goes off and everything's done, they've taken that and they've said, well, we're not going to run the clock that way. We're going to allow you as the referee to keep your own clock and run it for the last 2 minutes of the half. Okay. Well, that's all well and good if the referee and the stadium clock happen to match when you hit the 2-minute mark. But if for some reason or other, the stadium clock, because the timekeeper, whatever reason, the stadium clock is showing, 3.5 minutes, and the referee is down to 2 minutes, the clock is off at 2, but everybody's going, wait a minute, when it went off at 2, why are we playing, for this amount of time? And I would like, if I could do anything else, I would like to make the stadium clock the official clock in the game, and just have us manage it the same way they do in basketball and football and everything else. And it would make life a lot easier for people. But that's me from a whatever position I'm sitting in right now.
Wasn't the old
That's-
philosophy that if everyone knew exactly what time it was, there'd be more time wasting and all that? That was kind of the old line.
But if they're wasting time, you can stop the clock.
Right. Exactly.
See?
Yeah.
And so.
Well, is that enough on rule changes anymore, or we can move on if you guys want? I interviewed a Division I basketball ref a month ago, and a guy that I used to coach in basketball, and he was telling me, before every game he works, he watches maybe 4 to 6 hours of videotape of each team, of the teams together. So 4 to 6 hours of video of the teams, which, I had no idea that much preparation when I used to officiate. I had no interest in knowing that much about the team. I was going to get there and with an open mind and try to call the best game I could. But he wants to know all their inbound plays, where they're going to stand, their tendencies. He's got to know it all. And not just him. Most of the Division I referees do this. So when Ben had sent me some topics to talk about, and one of the topics was, what is the preparation you guys do before a game? And I'd imagine the higher level game is the more preparation. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a U10 game out in Hellswig, whatever it's called, on a Saturday, you can't know much about these teams. On the other hand, if you're doing the state championship AAA Class 6 game, you may be able to find tape. So anyway, what is your guys' preparation, physical and mental, before a game?
So as a matter of course, one of the things we're doing is we're communicating with our teammates at least a day or two prior to the game. Hey, which school is this? A lot of schools have changed names. They have similar names.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Hey, I'm going to be there at X. So Ben is a 45 to 60 minute prior to kickoff guy, right? Not everybody can do that. And we don't really have access to high quality video. I mean, the National Federation video is okay, but it's not great. But I do want to know, and as the season goes on, like what's the position in the standings? Is this game a rivalry important game? Not that will not from speaking for myself, not that will change anything, but I like to know what I'm walking into. On the other hand, you might look and here's a team that's winless and has not scored a goal all season, and they're playing some team that's fed by Loudoun United, superstar teams. And you're like, okay, well, this could be different. What am I gonna work on in the game? I'm gonna work on my fitness and my positioning, because it's not going to be a tight, fiercely competitive game. That's the stuff that I want to know. And then we do, all of us are doing, I think all of us are doing fitness training off season. Once the season starts, it's kind of exhausting, depending on how many games you're doing a week. And that's that 10 weeks, as Dick said, that goes by fast.
You're just trying to recover during the season, right?
For old guys, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing, trying to recover.
Mm-hmm. So anyone else want to jump in and talk about preparation?
I'll echo a little bit of what Ben said. From the mental perspective, I always try and look beforehand, because I'm one of those refs that does both the USSF stuff on the weekend, high school during the week. So which game is this that I'm doing? What rules am I doing? So am I doing IFAB laws of the game, or am I doing high school federation? So I'll mentally review that, go over the differences, some of the key differences between them, especially, if I'm going to a high school game, one of my pre-games with my crew is, whichever one, all right, we're doing USSF. Don't let me do a high school start if we're on the weekend. Hey, we're doing high school. Don't let me do a USSF restart, double check me on that, so I make sure I brief that during my games. But I try and look at one or two rules or laws before the game, try and get to the field a little bit early, just review one, you read through the law, couldn't tell you how many times I've read through the rule book, the law book, over and over and over again. You find something new, oh, I forgot about that. I hadn't seen that in a while, just to refresh yourself on something. So I'll usually pick one or two laws a week and go through it kind of with a fine-tooth comb, just to get my brain sharp on that particular law. Like I get to give a presentation on offside on Sunday, so I'm going through the offside law. So I'll go through that and see if there's things in there that, I may hadn't thought about since I did my initial certification all those years ago. So definitely some mental preparations with reviewing the laws, and then with the rec and travel, what league is it that you're at? Because they're going to have their own league, how long are the hats, how when are the substitution opportunities? So reviewing all that sort of stuff beforehand, because you want to make sure you follow whatever their rules are that they're implementing for their club as well. So there's definitely some of that before every game on the weekend.
Yeah, you can look at that offside rule until you're blue in the face, and it's still impossible. It's still impossible to see why you're out there. Well, yeah. So, well, thanks,
Julian,
Dave.
I would jump in. I'd be remiss to say that ever since you started your podcast, especially focusing on the high school sports aspect of things, I do use your podcast as part of my pre-match when it comes to the playoffs or regionals or districts, because you have some great guests. I mean, ultimately, you're bringing in the coaches, the players who are revealing a lot about themselves. And there's a lot of intelligence that can be gathered in those interviews, just little things that you can gain that could give you a slight advantage. And tactics is a great example, right? Oftentimes, the referee is built on their proximity, right? And so when you understand what tactics are being employed, if they've got a center back who can boot the ball 70 yards and make that ball, you're going to be making those deep runs, and you can get a little bit of a cheat on those runs. And your podcast is great for that, because it just gives us that kind of intelligence.
Well, thanks. So you're in the school of thought that the more information you have about the teams, their style, the more effective a referee you can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's something I never in all my years of refereeing, and I knew the teams really well after a while, but I never thought about it. But it is fascinating. That's what they're doing at the highest level now. So it's got to tell you something.
Well, Julian, consider the fact that Northern Virginia's produced, and I'm sorry I interrupted. Northern Virginia's produced some really, really outstanding soccer players. When you consider people like Mia Hamm and others that came through the system that did you see in high school and don't realize what their potential is, but they turn around and they're playing in MLS or they're playing overseas. It's just incredible the amount of talent that is in Northern Virginia, and so knowing some of that and spreading that rule amongst their information amongst referees is really good when you go to work some of these games.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the profile of a successful referee. I know Dave and last time Eric, I know they and Gabby are people, officials that had mentioned that it didn't take long to get the right training and advance quickly if that's what you're into and you have the time to do so. But the people that advance and do well and get to college quickly or even pro, and I know there were two women that were doing FIFA, are there certain profiles that they have? Like, for example, my son Chandler is doing intramural basketball and soccer down at UVA, and he says he's a better soccer ref, but he likes basketball better because it's just more action. But he feels like he doesn't know anything about basketball because he didn't play very much. So I would assume, and that, playing a sport is very helpful because you just know the rules from many years of playing. But what are some of the other things that you need to be a top official?
I think a lot is revealed in these audios and videos that we see now, where we can listen to the VAR and listen to the conversations on the field. And what do you hear? The referee is calm. The team is calm. Like, all heck may be breaking loose around them, they're very calm. And so, and you mentioned this earlier, Julian, you alluded to it, like in the past, like referees like, no, I have the yellow shirt on or the striped shirt, whatever. Like, I am God and my way goes. I think the best referees are so far away from that. They have deep humility, right? They know, as David said, like, we are students of the game. Literally everyone on this podcast and most of the high-level referees I know are studying all the time. We've been doing this so long. We're always learning. And we're sharing stuff on other private Facebook groups, sharing our videos and going, what do you think? Like, did I get this right? And so a thirst for continued knowledge with a deep sense of humility that the game is not about us. We are one at the high school level. We are one of the sane adults in the room, acting together with administrators and coaches to make for a safe and competitive and fun environment for teenage athletes. That's our job. As Dick said earlier, like, another biggest difference between high school and everything else is that this is a scholastic environment. Really, what goes on on the field should match the tenor that goes on in a classroom. And that's a big thing. And I think the top high school referees understand this deeply. And they're not going onto the field thinking or saying, this is all about me and I'm the boss and, you better be aware.
Yeah. And one thing that we talked about last time, and you did not just mention, is you have to have a certain athletic build. Like, for example, the officials in basketball, they want 6'4" and above. They want muscles. Obviously, you got to be fit. You can't wear your glasses. I used to love to officiate in my glasses, and I realized they wouldn't let you do that, so I had to wear my contacts. But anyway, anyone else have any opinions about what the profile is for success in officiating?
I think, just to echo kind of what Ben said, I think the referee that understands the game is not about them will go a long way in the game. You're there to facilitate the game, not be the center of attention. My goal when I leave the pitch is for the players not to even remember me. I just want to go away and they think about that they played. So I think a referee who understands that it's not about them, and I think most referees have that. I think that's a very important part. You hear spectators or something, oh, you're making it all about yourself. Well, we're really not trying to. And when I hear that, I'm really trying to then de-escalate that it's not about me. I think that's a good characteristic for the referees to have. And I think, like Ben also said, is a lifelong study of the game. You're never gonna study it, learn it, know it, and then just move on. You're gonna keep going back into it. And if you're not willing to do that, it's gonna be really hard to move up.
Yeah.
Julian, can I jump in a little bit? I don't referee anymore. I've got 2 replacement hips and I can't keep up with the kids. And my criteria is when I couldn't keep up with play, I decided I wasn't going to referee anymore. 2 things that a referee needs to do to be successful from a physical perspective is he needs to be in proximity of active play, and he needs to be able to make the angles that he needs on the field by maneuvering to be able to see interactive play. If he can achieve or she can achieve those 2 objectives, it's going to be more successful than if they don't do that. So from a physical perspective, there is a physical requirement, a physical fitness requirement that sort of is implied. We don't test it in high school. We don't test that. U.S. Soccer does test it and has a standard that has to be met. So it is a problem. If a referee is struggling in a game to keep up and not seeing calls and those types of things, it's easier for people to target the referee for not doing his job. For if you're not in position, how can you make that call? If you're calling a penalty kick when you're crossing midfield, that sort of begs the issue. And so one of the things that does is a problem. Admitted problem is not all referees are as fit as they could or should be when they're out there working, but that's a numbers game. And I will not tell a referee that I won't use him because he can't keep up, because I can't do that. I can't meet my requirements and tell a referee, you can't referee because you're not good enough to be out here. So as Ben said, and David said, and as have all said, it's training that in fact gets people ready to do this. And we offer that opportunity. Hopefully referees would come on board and take that and do something with it.
Dave and Ash can probably tell you how many miles they're doing in the center of a varsity boys or girls game. We all know our numbers, I think.
I know, Ben, yours was 4 last time, right?
About 4.3, yeah. 4 to 4.3, yeah.
Yeah.
Ash is probably more.
That's from us.
Yeah, I say any given day, it's somewhere between 5 and 7 for boys varsity, and then ramped up even more during the playoffs in state.
Yeah. I have hips more like Dick, so I haven't run that much the whole year. How about the process? Now we talked about some behavioral issues earlier, but sometimes push comes to shove, you have to give the red card. What is the process, high school and club, for when those moments do happen, you have to give a red card? I know one of the reasons why we don't give many red cards is nobody wants to deal with the red tape. And also, I know when I officiated, whenever you did something like that, you made headline news. And what I mean by that is all the officials used to gossip after the game. So 7:30 was a varsity time for basketball, and that game's over at 9. If you had to throw someone out or even give a tech, the whole board would know about it by 9:30. And Julian had to give that guy a technical foul. So, you didn't want to do that, because one way to not go forward is to always be in the news. Everyone's always talking about you. You want to keep a low profile. That's how you would advance back in those days. Anyway, what is the process for red cards?
I'll let the guys talk about that, but there are some specific things that come out in high school. But I'll let them talk about what they're looking at and how they're doing it if they'd like to.
I got to get off in a sec because I have a client call, but I think, Dick, people would be interested in knowing like how far up the food chain these red cards go in the schools. I say from a referee's perspective, that means extra paperwork that night, an extra phone call that night, and probably another phone call sometime in the next day or two to explain myself. So we don't like it. I don't like it. Sometimes initially you 2 yellow cards is a red card. I'm the one who sent off the wrong player 2 years ago, and I went home and immediately watched the video and said, "Oh my God, got the wrong guy." So we fixed that night, right? But we don't like it. You want the kids to play. You want everybody to behave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Julian, so you asked a little bit about the process of it. So some of that comes down to what is the red card for? But in the high school game, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to stop the clock. So now you can take your time, you can relax, you can breathe, you're not wasting the kid's time. The clock is stopped. So take a breath. Then you're going to tell the coach what the red card was for. Obviously, you're going to show the red card to the player that's earned it, but it depends on what was it for. Was it violent conduct? That's a very different red card than a second yellow red card. So you're going to approach how you display that differently. If it's a red card to a coach, that's going to be a different mechanism and procedure of how you're going to do that. Obviously, you're going to want to de-escalate the situation, make sure it doesn't become worse. But like Ben said, we don't want to give red cards. It's more paperwork. It's more, you're now the focus. We don't want to do that. But by the same token, we don't give them. The players earn them, or the coach.
Exactly.
So when it needs to happen, it needs to happen. I almost look upon myself as a referee that if a red card incident occurs in the game, I failed the players because I didn't use my other tools to manage the games. Sometimes it's unavoidable and it doesn't matter. You have the best referee out there. The red card's gonna happen. I saw a play where I was the AR and I watched the player run across the field and he targeted the player that he was going at. He intended to do and take down that player. And I was screaming before the contact happened. And luckily the center referee turned around and saw it just as it happened. But again, nothing we could do to stop that. But, so hopefully that shed some light on the red card mechanics. We'll give them if they earn them, but we're not giving them just because we want to.
No, that's great.
Just jump in 10 seconds. 2023, we gave out 152 red cards in the spring, 152. In 2022, we gave out 172. So 20 less last year than the year before. But the bulk of the red cards in soccer that are given out in the state of Virginia happen up here in the north, and we're the ones that are giving them. But high school is peculiar in the fact that a red card can be appealed. In U.S. soccer, if a referee gives a red card, there is no appeal. The decision on the field stands, and whatever the punishment that results from the red card that's imposed by the rules of competition are in fact enforced. In high school, it's a different process. The red card can be appealed, and that's why they have to file the report that night, because the appeal's coming in the very next morning. We in fact, if there's a decision to appeal it, both principals of the school, the away team and the visiting team, have to agree with the appeal. The commissioner, who's Kevin Newmeyer, in our case with CSOA, is the third voice in that triangle. And the appeal is sent down to VHSL with both schools' position and Kevin's position. And it's basically, it's either a unanimous decision to take away the red card or to keep it, or a two-vote majority will, in fact, rescind the card. So it's slightly different, and it's somewhat problematic because once it gets out of our hands into that system, it doesn't have the same impact necessarily that it does with U.S. soccer when the referee gives the card. Only other issue that needs to be addressed, though, is the HSL has come down very hard on fighting and verbal abuse, racial in particular. And they've imposed a series of more strict punishments for that. This year, if you get a red card for fighting, you're going to lose 30% of your opportunities to play in a season, which basically could be 4 or 5 games that you're going to sit. So it's become significant, and we need to get that message to the coaches and the players that find another alternative to start hooking and jiving. Because if you get out there and do that, you're going to be out of the game for a while.
I think we find sometimes, though, when the penalties are too harsh, people are afraid to implement those penalties. So I think maybe 4 games is a little harsh, but because sometimes if it's would that be for 2 yellows as well?
No.
Okay.
No. Just it's fighting. Fighting is a particular. Which would equate. I mean, it has to be described as fighting, and it has to occur.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, I missed that.
So that's it. Yeah. No, the 2 yellows results in a red. The player sits that game. Okay. If neither one of the red cards either one of the yellow cards are for dissent, the player does not have to sit the next game.
Okay.
So he would sit that game, but not the next. If the second card or first card is for dissent, then he's going to sit another game for having received the second yellow.
Okay.
That help?
Yeah. Yes. That's great.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
didn't know that. That was very
Yeah,
helpful.
I gotta get off. This has been fantastic. Thanks, everybody, for participating.
Thanks for putting it get. Yeah, we'll probably go 10 more minutes, Ben. If your call's over, jump back on if you can.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
setting up, Ben. Guys, I wanted to, and we're almost done here. I wanted to talk a little bit. Ash, did you have anything to say about red cards? I know you love to give. Okay, you love to give them away. So, and just kidding. Ash is very diplomatic. Let's talk about blue cards now. And I read somewhere it's either UEFA, I believe, or FIFA has been thinking about implementing blue cards, which is like a penalty box. So you have a certain amount of time away from the game, you can come back in. And it's always interesting when they do something revolutionary like that. That's a huge change. It's almost like in basketball this year, now they do the fouls by quarter instead of by half, which is a huge difference. The way fouls have always been tabulated going to the one-on-one foul shooting. Anyway, I think this is a huge change. But in high school, we have a little bit of it because when you give a yellow card, the player has to sit out until the next whistle. So that's always been interesting, and it takes people a while to get used to that. So anyway, what do you guys, first of all, think about the yellow card system in high school? Do you like the fact that kids have to come out? Does that work? And what about the blue card system? Would you be up for trying that on the pro level? And what about making that something that we do on the club and high school level as well?
So personally, from my perspective, I don't have an issue with the yellow card in the high school rule where the player has to leave. It's good. It gives them an opportunity to calm down. But I also, if they did it the same way IFAB did, with unlimited substitutions, the coach can still pull them off if they want. If maybe it was a tactical foul that the coach really liked that foul, and good job taking that yellow card for the team, but wants the player to stay out there and risk it, I think that's a coaching decision they should be able to do. So I'm okay with either way, but I think the IFAB way works better. As far as the blue card goes, it's just one more thing to manage. I mean, if you're going to implement the sin bin, the yellow cards that came in, I think it was 2019, when the temporary send off, it's just a different way of showing that sin bin yellow card with a blue card, so everybody understands it. So I like the idea of having a different color card to implement the sin bin. But now it's something to manage. Who's managing that time? Most games we do, there's not a fourth official to manage that. Is my AR now got to take that on? Do I got to take that on? How do I make sure that player, sits out the requisite amount of minutes to do it? So I like the idea, but again, we need help doing it because it's just another thing we've got to try and manage and track, and somebody's going to get upset when they don't think we did it right.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. Thanks. Anyone else want to jump in on the yellow, high school yellow and the blue?
If you compare VAR, you mentioned VAR before, and it's similar to this. They're able to do that at the level at which they've implemented VAR, pro levels, et cetera, et cetera. The problem that it's created, though, Julian, is that there's an expectation from people, spectators, et cetera, that there's going to be the same level of fidelity applied to non-VAR games as there are in VAR games. The idea is don't worry about it. That offside is going to be looked at, et cetera. And obviously it's not going to happen. And so it's changed the mentality of a lot of people, I think, that are watching the game. And I think the blue card is going to do the same thing. It's going to create a problem that I don't think those leagues need to have in order to deal with the problem they're trying to solve. And that is dissent with players and things like that, they've got methodologies to deal with it now. Yeah. So
how about you, Ash? Do you like the idea of a penalty box?
I like anything with the implementation of a new rule, and Dave touched upon it. The devil is in the details, and how are we expected to manage it? The average center official goes out there with 2 watches on, one probably tracking GPS results and both tracking time, right? Are we going to now carry a 3rd watch to manage that 10-minute period? Are we going to ask our AR1 to manage it? What is the threshold for a tactical foul? What is the threshold on dissent? I mean, at the end of the day, I come from a law enforcement background. If you give me a rule and give me the parameters, I'm going to enforce that rule as IFAB or NFHS wants it to be enforced. So whether I like it or not, I'll put it into effect. But realistically, it's a tough one to sell.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think they use this in the Fairfax Sportsplex for the indoor league. They've always used the blue card for that. So it is blue. So it's interesting that once again, Fairfax Sportsplex is at the leading edge of international soccer. I would like to end with this question, and I know you guys probably have strong feelings about this. And I asked every high school soccer coach this, and also club coach. What do you guys think about Virginia being one of 12 other states, I believe, that plays high school in the spring? And I think 35 or 6 play in the fall. I think California plays in the winter. I believe that's the way it is. But anyway, would you guys like to see our season in alignment with the other jurisdictions? It would definitely help club coaches. But as an official, do you have any opinion on that?
From the association's perspective, and I'll jump in, is the fact that it's great for us to play in the spring when Maryland plays in the fall, because there's a number of referees that cross. So we get the benefit of having more bodies available to cover the games. The other problem, of course, is the kids. If they're trying to get into a college environment and play soccer, they've got to approach it a year earlier. Because they can't wait till their senior year in order to make their bones in the spring before they graduate. So from that perspective, it's problematic, for the students.
That's a great point.
So that's just two things that I found are helpful and not so helpful.
Yeah. David or Ash, do you have any opinions on that? I know, a lot of it could be your schedule, as Dick kind of implied, in that he's using referees that are available because it's a different season. But any other justifications or arguments against?
No,
I will say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What?
As the older I get, I prefer warmer games, right? And so if I can pull out the short sleeve referee kit for a match, then I'm a happy camper. So spring works out real well for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
but I would think you're still going to get that cold at some point. But no, I guess you start off with a cold and you move towards warmer weather towards the end. Dave, did you want to jump in?
Oh, no, yeah. From my perspective, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I do as many fall games as we can. I think Dick said we did 800 and something as an association. So I was doing 2, maybe 3 a week, with the private schools in the fall anyway. So for me, it doesn't really matter. I almost don't notice a difference.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, this has been great. It's been really nice to meet you, Dave and Dick, and Ash. Always great to see you. Hopefully we can do this again, at least yearly, and talk about some of the issues. And if you guys ever come across something as a good topic, put it aside and we can bring. There's so many topics that come up as an officials. I mean, it's endless, really. So when things occur to you, make sure you put them aside. And next time we chat, maybe we can talk about those topics as well. But look, I just appreciate your time. This has really been great. Are there any closing thoughts for you guys?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I think this has been absolutely great. And watch the coaches podcast, and having an opportunity to have the same sort of dialogue is really good. So thank you.
Equal time, Dick. Equal time.
Equal time, absolutely.
Ash or Dave? Yeah.
Julian, this was really good to do. Really enjoyable to be part of. And I haven't watched the coaches one yet, but I will be shortly. So thanks for hosting this.
Oh, sure. And I have a whole bunch of old ones with Bo. It's whenever I go one-on-one with Bo, there's going to be fireworks. I'd recommend at least a few of those too. So yeah. Well, thanks, Dave. How about you, Ash?
Julian, you help to demystify a lot of what's out there behind the game, right? And people see the match for the 80 minutes that get played, but you get into the heads of coaches, players, and now officials, and really give people insight that they may not otherwise have. So just keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Oh, appreciate you saying that. Appreciate your always supported me. And again, you did a great job. You do a great job officiating. I've seen you many times, of course. So, but look, guys, look, this has been great again. And I want you, hopefully you enjoy your Friday and you have my email. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Okay.
Julian.
All right, guys,
Thanks,
enjoy it.
Julian.
Thanks.